Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Mikey Kent, guitarist and vocalist for the band Private Hell. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's up, Caffeinated crew? On this episode, I'm joined by Mikey from the Richmond band Private Hell. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I got some fresh coffee and I'm stoked to talk here with you.
Likewise, I've also got fresh coffee and I'm also stoked to talk with you. So this is great.
Yeah, I told you off before we started recording that I was running a few minutes late because I was doing my French press bit. And then, of course, I ended up just bringing it upstairs with me. So
there you go.
I figured if anyone would understand the plight of running late because of wanting to make good coffee, it'd probably be you.
If you only knew the percentage of people, me included, on episodes where it's like, oh, fuck, I got my coffee's not done. Like, I've got to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, for real.
And I'm like committed to the bit of I'm going to brew my own. And so it's like, I'm like waiting for it to drip down and I can't make gravity go any faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't jumped into that side of things. I've been doing the French press thing for a while, if only because of like the amount of space in my house. Like I used to have like the Mr. Coffee machine or whatever.
Right,
and now it's just like I moved into this house in Northside Richmond where there's a lot of really old houses. And our house is like 100 plus years old, me and my wife's house. And there is so little space for storage or anything like that. So it's like I need the most compact setup possible. Right. So we had to have a conversation before I decided to get an espresso machine, which she finally got for me.
Oh, nice. That's so, yeah, the conversation of, because my wife is very organized. Mm-hmm. I'm not.
Yes,
I usually follow her organization regimen. And so whenever it's like we move, we're looking at the apartment and it's like, where's the coffee station going? Like the coffee bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in Montreal, the apartments are also pretty old for the most part. So.
Yeah, when we were on tour, we stayed in a pretty old one. But I will say, and I'm sure we'll talk about kind of our tour we went on recently, but I love Montreal. We were talking the whole time about how much we were like, I could live in this city. Like yes. This is a city I vibe on. It has a similar sort of energy at times that I love so much about Richmond. Maybe it's a little bit of the crustiness of it but then also just like the kind of the culture felt reminded me of Richmond. Like when we played under a bridge with trains going behind us. I think it's called like the Rosemont Underpass.
Yeah. Who did y'all play that show with?
We played with a really good power violence band.
Jet Sam?
No, it was not. It was one word. I'm gonna have to look it up.
I'm curious to know because I didn't even hear about that show.
Yeah, so with that, this was our first like kind of longer tour. Longer being relative, like 8 days. We'd done like long weekenders before, but this was our first time doing a tour. And a lot of us, we kind of come originally more from the more strictly punk world,
right?
We've been kind of playing more in the for lack of a better word, capital H, like hardcore world and metal world with this band, which we've really liked doing. But a lot of our booking connections are still in that world. So that's like a lot of the shows we were playing were more of that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't like a track.
Verify. That's what it's called.
Man, Verify is sick.
They were really good. I'm very picky with power violence. I think a lot of bands will call themselves power violence and it just doesn't capture the spirit of it.
Yeah.
Whereas they had the exact sort of no comment crossed out sort of thing where I was giving them many praises after their set.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a hiccup with our Montreal show because it was the same day that the punk band Electric Chair was playing in town.
Oh yeah.
So we're like, oh shit, we're gonna have a competing show with Electric Chair. And so we ended up doing a matinee under a bridge, but it was actually really fun. There's a secret under a bridge spot in Richmond called Hell's Door where they'll
Okay.
have like huge shows there. So it felt very Richmond, playing a show under a bridge, people biking up to the show and stuff. It was fun. And we
That's
loved Montreal.
was because it's right on the bike path too, and the skate park is like right across
Hmm.
the
Yeah, it
tracks.
was like
So
right there. Yeah. I was like
we
kind of moseying around that area.
we filmed a music video there because we played that. Was it like July? I think June or June. We played in June, and we filmed a music video,
Hmm.
like we did at an Underpass show.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. It
was
was
very
awesome.
cool. It's got kind of like a Mad Max vibe.
Very, very Mad Max. It was just funny though, because it had like the bike trail behind it. There were still like people just like jogging like behind the band, like, what's going on here?
Like normies, just like there's no way I'm stopping for this. Just
Yeah, it was pretty funny. There's definitely like some like parents and their kids, but they like were watching, so it was fun. Like
I
we
love how
really
many kids
vibed
come
on it.
out. There's so
Yeah.
many kids that like with their parents and like
Mhm.
sitting on the shoulders.
Yeah,
It's cool.
yeah. We identified with Montreal pretty heavily. Where like we played Ottawa the next day. We're like, all right, we're still gonna spend most of the day in Montreal, and we didn't spend enough time journeying in Ottawa. I don't want to like throw shade or anything, but it was like from
It's
what we
okay.
gathered, there's not as much to do there.
There is not.
Whereas like Montreal, we went hiking up like where there's that big scenic
Mount
view.
Royal.
Yeah, where there's like that big cross and stuff. We went up there, explored and got food, did laundry and all that in Montreal, which was definitely, I think, like I said, a place that we could live there.
Yes.
I liked it quite a bit, even
Did
if
you
we
get
don't speak French.
You don't. That's the beauty of Montreal is it's so multicultural that you can
Yeah,
pretty much get by.
yeah. I'm sure this isn't completely the case, but like vibe I got was like some people's like, but some people are lying that they don't speak English just to like make me feel stupid.
It depends on the neighborhood,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I'm sure it varies.
all in all, Montreal is so like Neapolitan, I guess is what it's called.
Mhm.
That it's I mean, pretty much anywhere you go, you know, people are accommodating, especially to people from outside because we're 40 minutes from the border.
Yeah,
So people from the States come up all the time and everybody, I mean, you know, being from the States, I'm from the States. I didn't know that anybody spoke French in Montreal when I moved here.
see, so I this tour was my first time ever crossing the border ever. I just had never gotten to go abroad before for whatever reason. I was originally going to go on like my honeymoon to Europe and stuff, but
Nice.
then COVID hit. But yeah, so I had never been across the border, so this is like my first time even being in a place where English wasn't the only language. So that had a sort of charm to me, just because I'd never had that experience before. So when we did laundry, I definitely like was having to like infer basically what was going on in the machines. I mean, I'm also a dumbass to be fair, but
I mean, I'm in the boat with you. Like, if I've got context, I can kind of get it.
yeah,
But for the most part, my brain is pretty slow when like somebody just comes up to me and like, and I've been here for 5 years. Somebody like splurts something out in French. It takes like a second for it to click on what they said.
yeah,
And if it's out of context, I am going to be lost.
yeah,
So-
yeah, for sure.
Let's not get too far in without talking about some coffee. What are you drinking?
So I am drinking. I actually even brought up the bag. I got some beans from this place called Blanchard's in Richmond. It's
Okay.
the Richmond blend.
Oh,
Blanchard's, it's kind of like there's a lot of really good coffee shops here. I feel like Blanchard's is kind of like it's like the one like mainly like a lot of the punk and hardcore people go to. It's like the spot where like you go there on a Saturday and you'll see
right.
you know the singer of DOM there. You'll see the people from Richmond Vampire there. It's just like kind of like the hangout spot. But they have really good coffee. I've been doing like a lot of espresso lately. I've kind of been doing like I'd say like 70% espresso,
Oh,
30% black coffee. I think it's because I got a machine around Christmas, so there's still like a novelty to like
yeah.
doing home espresso, and it's just like I can just grind it out so quick because like I have like a French press is what I use at home, so that takes a little while. Whereas like I can just like make some quick espresso and throw some milk in, for like my lazy drink.
Have you gotten into the latte art rabbit hole?
No, I know I've like kind of like tried a little bit, but I really want to just because like just to like make stuff for like my wife to to impress my wife.
So, all right. Okay. So this is a question because people who start getting into coffee, was it like a YouTube journey that you went on to figure out your coffee stuff?
Yeah, so I've always been a coffee person. since like middle school. I've told people this before where like I was like kind of inundated from a very young age to love the taste of coffee. Like just my mom would give me coffee ice cream or coffee yogurt when I was a kid. So like it was like training me from a very young age to like that sort of like mocha-y taste. When I was in middle school, my dad would give me like espresso chocolate beans to give me caffeine in the morning, which is like probably not a great thing to do in retrospect, just to like crack your kid up to like make them crash later. But so like, and I would, like drink like frappuccinos when I was like, 12 years old or whatever, which is like a milkshake, but you know what I mean? It's still like coffee-ish. So by time I was in high school, like I was bringing like the big, huge cup of coffee. I'd say I think like a lot of people during COVID, when I spent so much more time at home, is when I really started getting into coffee like that as something that's kind of liking coffee for the sake of coffee rather than just as like a
fuel source,
straight functional fuel source. I do black coffee. I think this kind of says a lot about me is I really hate to like need things that aren't necessary. So like when pre-COVID, when I was going into work, I would like some days they wouldn't have the cream there, they wouldn't have the sugar there. So I just like slowly started weaning myself off of it completely to just like force myself to like black coffee. Now I love it. But I would say over the last 2 years is when I've really gotten into coffee, where I'm in recovery and I quit drinking year and a half ago, and I feel like that's like a probably a normal thing. It's like I need some sort of drink to obsess over. So now I'm just really into dark roast coffee mainly. I'm still trying to get into the florally kind of stuff. I think I'm still kind of go towards like the more like nutty dark chocolate, like toffee kind of stuff. But yeah, that's my coffee journey.
It will take one coffee. I think this is usually how it goes. It's like the eye-opening, life-changing cup.
But yeah, to answer your question way back, I have not gone down the espresso art yet, but like I feel like it's inevitable that I'm gonna. I feel like he must have been referenced on the show before, like getting into like James Hoffman's YouTube videos of just like thinking about coffee differently. I don't know. Maybe in like the straight up coffee community, he might like be considered overrated or something. But for me, it was definitely just like made me think about coffee on a more like specific sort of level.
Yes, that's who reinvigorated me and started. I watched his French press video.
That's why I started doing French press. I was like, I'm trying to look for like a low stress coffee way, and I use his. I think it's like 0.28 grams to like 2 cups of water is like his recipe.
And you do like the 8-minute where you let it sit for 4, scrape the crust, and then let it cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
you're speaking my language.
Yes. So that's how I started. And then I was like, oh, I kind of miss like the pour over thing.
I've been kind of feeling the urge myself to like, I need to try something a little different.
So I was a barista too, and we did pour overs. So I was like, I knew it, but I didn't know it, like I was in the matrix still. So, but then once I got the pour over thing, it was like game over, horrible. Like my life is ruined kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So make your choice wisely. But yeah, I mean, it is good. Like as long as like people are like coffee has caffeine and it's bad. It's like this and that. It's like, I'm not drinking 8 cups a day.
Yeah. I try to keep it to like 3 tops.
3
is
max.
About what I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. It's like,
plus it's good for your heart.
It's good for your heart. It's good just for my happiness too. Like, it's like one of those things, like, even if if you overdo it, it's bad for you. Like, listen, I'm not doing heroin. Like I used to drink 2 40 ounces a day. Like, I think I can handle,
3 cups of coffee.
The downside of a couple cups of coffee. I try to brush my teeth afterwards so my dentist doesn't kill me, but that's about it.
And then because you're doing dark roast, so the acidity level is not super high. You're not really causing any enamel damage or anything. I unfortunately drink the most acidic coffees.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I've got to hit a rinse, and usually I have to brush after I drink it because my wife yells at me. She's like, you gotta take care of your teeth. So
yeah, I definitely had the thing when I got a job where I could get dental insurance, where I was like, I kind of wish I didn't know how bad my teeth were and how much I've been wrecking them. I'd rather live and like be blissfully unaware of that I have like five cavities.
My teeth are fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
But no, it's actually funny because I went like 3 years without going to the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we got dental insurance here, I went and I was like, my teeth are going to be so fucked up. And she was like, you don't have any cavities or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how? I brush horribly. Like I'm not. So you never know, I guess. Genetics.
So not to get too off base, but now I'm just curious. In Canada, so dental insurance is not free?
No. Okay. So this is a good convo because I've been talking to a lot of Canadians and they just know the deal. So your basic insurance, your basic health plan is like hospital, general doctor. Like if basically I have like a clinic I call and then I can go in x-rays if my hand is broken or something. Basically just seeing like a normal doctor, like a general physician. That's free.
Yeah. But like eyes and teeth aren't?
No.
Gotcha.
So like through my wife's job, we have, like a group plan. Usually where you work, you'll have a group plan, which is like vision, dental, mental health, like all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's still reasonable. Like it's not bad.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But yeah, like if you go to the hospital, like I broke my hand, I went to the hospital, waited 5 hours and like didn't leave with the bill.
I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's dope.
My wife is pregnant, and we have insurance, so like we'll be okay. But even still, I think I know what kind of bills we're gonna get hit with, and why does it have to be like this?
Yeah, that's like I know people will go in a lifelong debt if you don't have health insurance. Like if you have a kid, I know people that had $30,000 when they had to go to the hospital for COVID.
It's insane. Like it's just crazy. Like the idea of going into massive amounts of debt to have a child. Like it's crazy.
And here it's like they give you stuff.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, and here it's just like
it's like good luck.
Yeah. I've already been like done research on like when you have a child, when you get the bill, you have to get an itemized receipt because they'll try to slip things in there that'll like try to rip you off. I'm like, what a world, what a country to live in.
Who doesn't love capitalism?
Yeah,
right?
Isn't it great?
I mean, even in Canada, it's not so bad, but we do have, instances, especially in some of the other provinces. Like you said, Montreal is very European influenced.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't put up with bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Like support local businesses. If you need meat, you go to your butcher. If you need bread, you go to your bakery. A lot of people don't go to Walmart to shop for groceries. Like,
oh yeah. When I was walking around the city, it had that sort of vibe where it was just like, I wasn't seeing a ton of chains and stuff. I'm sure they're there somewhere, but like, it did have just like a very like you said, like a European sort of feel that was very, I don't know, very cozy.
Yeah. It's like people care about each other. People look after each other. Like even in COVID, a lot of small businesses didn't close because people were loyal to their like neighborhood, basically.
Yeah.
So that was very cool. Like while a lot of chains did shut down, like we like there were like 10 or 15 Starbucks that shut down.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah. I was so happy.
Hell yeah, that rocks.
And then none of my coffee spots closed.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn. Now that's a world to live in. All the Starbucks are going out of business.
And then you just have a bunch of nice local shops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
My wife isn't a big coffee person. She'll drink like she's just like sweet stuff. So she'll get like lattes or whatever. But so she still really likes to go to Starbucks to get like, we'll just call them, when we say describe frappuccinos, we'll just call them fancy milkshakes or whatever. She's just like, I really want a fancy milkshake. I was like, which is fine. But I was like, yeah, I don't even go to, whenever she goes, like, I don't even get like coffee from Starbucks. I get like, I consider it's like Taco Bell. Like you don't go to Taco Bell to get Mexican food. You go to Taco Bell to get Taco Bell. And that's how I view Starbucks, is where it's like, yeah, I'll get like a brown sugar oat milk shaken espresso or whatever, but I won't get like a coffee from there.
I'm not mad at that though. Like I'm not
Yeah.
mad at the shaken
Yeah, exactly.
espresso.
It just is what it is. It's
Yeah. I mean, is it authentic? No.
no.
But is it a tasty?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tasty little treat.
It's a little naughty guilt treat. And
Yeah.
you just gave $7 to
Yeah,
this
yeah.
to this horrible corporation, but you got this little sweet thing.
Yeah. See, the thing with me is like I'm pretty unpretentious when it comes to coffee. It's the same way I was with like beer, where it's like I'll drink. I don't have a problem with gas station coffee or whatever. Like I'll go to 7-Eleven or Wawa or whatever and just get a coffee. But like there's something about Starbucks where it's like paying that much for that coffee is when it like if this was like $1.50 for a cup, then yeah, that's fine. But like just to taste like burning, like burnt ash, where it's like, yeah, I'll pay $2 at a 7-Eleven or Wawa or Sheetz or whatever.
I'm
not mad about that.
I put respect on the name of Wawa.
Yeah, for sure. Do they have Wawa in Canada? I don't even remember.
Nah, so my mom lived in Orlando for a bit.
Okay.
And like the only thing around is Wawa, right? So
yeah.
I used to go over and get like the iced coffee in the morning because it was one of the only coffee spots, and I put that in quotes. But it was like it's better than Starbucks taste.
Yeah.
For half the price. And they're also not as icky as Starbucks, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's just nice just getting what you know is like a shitty cup of coffee, and it's just kind of there's something like it's like to me it's like when I was drinking it's like equivalent of like a PBR or whatever. Like I know exactly what it is. Yep. This doesn't have the fine hops balance or whatever of a like an amber ale or whatever. Yeah, exactly. But it's just like it's good for what it is.
It is good for what it is.
But it's cheap too. It has to be cheap. I wouldn't pay $6 for a PBR.
But it gets the job done.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I know that you had mentioned this about Montreal, and I have felt this way too because I'm from Savannah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I've been through Richmond a few times, like going up and down the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have this crusty, I know it's a punk city, Richmond. Mm-hmm. And I've mixed some bands in Savannah. I can't remember there was like a hardcore punk band in like 2016 I mixed. And it's this vibe that does match Montreal. It's very punk driven, but very crusty, very kind of utilitarian, but still warm. Yeah,
absolutely.
But kind of give me your background in the scene and how you came up.
So I'm originally from North Carolina. You basically say I'm from Greensboro, which is the third largest city in North Carolina.
What's the pop? Give me the pop. I'm just kidding.
I couldn't even say I will say it's about the same size as Richmond. So we'll get to that with Richmond because Richmond's interesting because it's not a big city. But from Greensboro, without going into the whole turned out a punk thing, got into punk and hardcore when I was like 13. Via the avenues most people do, Green Day. Going in, I went kind of and then I went like kind of Metallica, and then I went like straight into like 80s hardcore. Like I lived in like the 80s hardcore world for a long time, and that's still like some of my favorite music ever. Like I feel like, how old are you?
30.
Okay, so you're my age. I'm 31.
Okay.
So I kind of got into hardcore around like 2005, 2006, and which was right around the same time that there was a real resurgence of like 80s style hardcore, especially in Richmond and Raleigh. And I started playing music. I played in a band. We were called The Fuss. We were kind of like a 80s hardcore. We went on to sound like DRI or like MDC, Black Flag, Minor Threat, that kind of stuff. Cool. And right around that same time was when Raleigh started popping with Sorry State Records. There's bands like Double Negative, this band Cross Laws. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, Richmond had like Government Warning and Direct Control. There's this whole like kind of centered around this label called No Way Records. Anyways, so that was kind of like my real gateway into like contemporary hardcore, was like these really great bands that were fast and aggressive, but like decidedly very punk. It was like kind of like, to use the parlance of the time, I think these are very dumb terms, but at the time, in 2007, it was like you're either like hardcore punk or you're brocore or whatever. These are very stupid terms. These are very dated terms. Now people use terms like capital H hardcore or whatever. But I kind of came up in that world. And when you're a very impressionable child, like I was like, I don't want any of that stuff. So like I missed out on a lot of great music from 2008 because I was like told by like my peers, you don't want to listen to, anything on Bridge 9 Records or whatever, because like that's not cool. So that was till I was about 18, about the mindset I had. I later got into a lot of that stuff. Like I have like a ceremony tattoo now. Like not a lot of that stuff became some of my favorite music.
Right.
But that's kind of like the world I came up in, is going into shows like that. I would go to Richmond because Richmond was like the Southeast mecca of that style of hardcore punk. They used to have this fest called No Way Fest. See bands like Career Suicide and stuff like that.
That's Toronto.
Yeah. Great band.
Yeah.
But so I kind of came up in that world. I played in bands like that. Then we kind of got into like Power Violence and stuff like that. So I played in that band, The Fuss, for a few years. Then actually, so I tell people about this. I never dropped out of hardcore, but I moved. When I went to college, I went to Charlotte. And at the time, Charlotte had, with the exception of like 2 or 3 bands, like no aggressive, like heavy scene. They had like kind of like poppy punk stuff. They had like indie rock stuff. So that's kind of the pools I was floating in for a while. Like I was still into hardcore.
Right.
But I was playing in a band that was more like Against Me-ish or like Gaslight Anthem, like kind of melodic kind of punk stuff. I played a band called Radio Reds. We did a little bit of touring, but we never like kind of pushed it hard. Although I think we were a pretty good band. So I mentioned earlier that festival I went to in DC, Damage City Fest. And like I said, like I was still like liked hardcore, but I just wasn't taking part in a community in the scene because they're just, with the very exception of a handful of people, and I wasn't necessarily friends with them, I just wasn't in that social circle.
Right.
My big like coming back into hardcore was going to Damage City Fest in 2014. And that's when I kind of saw these great bands that were happening at the time. There's like in Washington DC, they had a really good scene that they call it the new wave of DC hardcore.
Right.
My buddy Connor Donegan, who's now in like Brain Tourniquet and stuff and Eternal Champion, he was in all these great bands there. There's like the Red Deaths of the time. There was Pure Disgust and all these really cool bands. That's when I also, that festival, I like the headliners were Infest and Los Crudos, kind of more like kind of 90s old school bands. Great bands, especially Los Crudos I love. But that's when I got into like the Flex and Violent Reaction, all the cool British stuff going on at the time. So all that's to say that was really like when I went from like back into hardcore as like, this is like my life. Soon when I graduated high school, I moved to graduated college. I moved to Richmond basically on a whim. Me and my partner at the time, we broke up. My band broke up. I basically had nothing going on. And you could basically say I like pointed a finger at the map and I was like, I'm moving there. Just like a random place. So then I moved to Richmond. I've been here now since 2015. And Richmond just has such a fascinating scene. Like I said, when I was in high school, I would visit here a couple times and I always thought it was really special. And I played here on tour a couple times. But moving here, it's if you have even a passing interest in punk and hardcore, you like instantly can jump in here.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating because it's a small city, but it doesn't. It's because it's a VCU is here, which is like the mainly an art school here. And there's just a constant influx of arty people that are always coming here. So whereas in like North Carolina, like kind of how I was saying, like how Charlotte like had really not much scene. In Greensboro, it had a scene, but it wasn't like super big. But it was always like based around 2 to 4 people who do all the booking, who do all the work to keep the train on the tracks. Otherwise, it dies in the water. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. Richmond is so fascinating to me because it's a small city, but it has the infrastructure in terms of like punk and hardcore of a big city where since even the 80s, there's always been a good punk and hardcore scene in Richmond. When I moved here, there's still this venue called Strange Matter, which was kind of like the common ground space where there's all these different scenes. And I started a couple bands when I first moved in here. It took a while for something to stick. I had a couple bands that we put out demos. I did a band for a few years with my wife called Ghoulie. That was really fun. But even still, it was kind of like a very like it was like a band I played guitar in, but it was very I don't want to say unambitious, but we just didn't push it very hard. We just kind of were very casual, but just like we were a good local band. We got to play some cool shows. And then 2021, I started Private Hell, which I sing and play guitar in, and I play in it with Eric Phillips, who's like a local photographer here. He has a pretty cool Instagram. I Love Trent Reznor is his Instagram handle. He does a lot of cool photography, but he also of like music, but he also just does cool photography. He does a lot of show booking here. Sam Roberts, who he played in the band Fried Egg, who are like a really cool kind of like mixture of like 80s hardcore and like noise rock. And then our buddy Nick Walker was just a ripping guitarist. But yeah, so we started this band, and it's the most excited I've ever been about a band that I've ever played in. I've always kind of told people like, this is the band I've wanted to be in since I was 16, because it brings together all the different elements of things I've always wanted to do. Because like I was saying, like I was always into 80s hardcore since I was like a kid, but I also always loved metal, and I always loved Slayer, and I always loved, whether it's like Metallica, Sepultura, and then I love like Integrity, and I love Japanese hardcore, and I love like weird heavy stuff like Neurosis and stuff like that. And what's fun with this band is trying to synthesize that into a cohesive sound. And I think we've done pretty well so far. But yeah, so that is the Cliff Notes version of my punk life.
It's very good.
Yeah, I've been here for a while. I do show booking. I wouldn't say I'm one of the main bookers. I book a handful of shows a year. There's people like Ace Stalling, who doesn't even live here currently, but he's still like kind of does a ton of booking. Our bassist also does a good amount of booking. But I'm 31 now, and I found so much value in still being involved in punk and hardcore at this age. I think a lot of people, I'm sure you can attest that like, when you've been around in the scene this long, you've seen so many people come and go, whether it was just a phase for them when they were 20 or their band breaks up and then they just kind of fall off, which is fine. Like I get why anybody would be over it whether they want to focus on a career, family, which, I have a job and I have, a family and stuff too. But I really found a lot of value in still seeing why punk and hardcore matters so much to me in this age. And I think it's so funny because how when you're like 18, somebody's 30, you're like, that person is so old. But I don't know. I feel like people get so fixated on like, oh, I'm so old, I shouldn't be here. Like, no, yeah. I still feel like I'm one of the younger people in the room.
Yes.
It's not to beat a cliche over the head, but it's like the whole like Minor Threat thing of like, it's not how old I am, it's how old I feel.
Yep.
And I try not to be like a man child of somebody who's like in perpetual adolescence of like who can't grow up, but I also found a lot of value in growing older, and I would like to think wiser and more mature, but also like I love stage diving and I love hardcore. I love punk. I love metal. I don't know what I would do without it.
Have you had anyone call you their hardcore dad?
No, but I've been called an old head.
You've been called an old head?
I've been called an old head. It's like, I'm 31.
I've been jokingly called an old head by somebody who knew it would bother me.
Yeah.
And it was a bandmate because he's 23, 24.
Yeah. 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 And like, I will say, I love talking with younger, like 20-year-old kids. And like, they're fully sentient beings. They can do their own thing, but like kind of like passing on any sort of experience or wisdom I have them. Like there's a band called like Homemade Speed, and they used to be in a band called Relief. They're from Virginia Beach or Norfolk. And they're like 17, and I love like talking with them and like trying to be a good influence on their involvement in punk and hardcore, if you know what I mean. Because when I was 18, there were people who were dicks to me.
Everybody was a dick. Everybody was mean.
People talk about like there's the whole gatekeeping conversation. I think there's a lot of different facets to it. And I will say that there should be a certain amount of gatekeeping. Like, I think people should tell you what the good bands are, because like I said, I was gatekept from a lot. It makes me sound like I'm just like a victim. I could have had my own opinions, but I was an impressionable child.
Poor guy.
But yeah, I know I'm such a victim. No, I'm just kidding. But I do think it's important to have people who will tell you like, no, that band sucks. Like, or like, this band's really good. But people were so mean to me, like when I was like a 17-year-old in bands. Like now there's like I see a lot of bands that are like with people who are 18 who they get like some really sick gigs, and I'm like, yeah, they're a good band, but like I was teased by certain people who were like, called us, which is like very unclever. They call us like kinder punks, which I guess is like kindergarten, I guess, or just like stupid shit like that, or just like be like shitty to us because we were like 17 and just wanted to play like DRI or whatever, or like Minor Threat. And I think it is important to be like cool to younger people while also still like trying to like tell them what the good shit is.
Like, don't fuck with this band.
Yeah, exactly. Like you see people who come from different sides of people. Everybody gets into punk and hardcore in a different way, but you should also tell them like, there's some good stuff you should be checking out. Like, not gonna name his names. Like that band's cool, but like, yeah, maybe you should check out, Government Warning or something, or check out this cool band that's also doing music right now. Check out Brain Tourniquet. Check out whatever. Or even like in Richmond, like there's some good bands, but you see people who like definitely come in from like the new metal world, which is fine. You can like whatever you want to like, but there's some cool stuff that I think you should maybe consider checking out. Because I think one of the things that's really interesting right now is because, I was talking about when I was 16, you were either in the capital H Bridge 9 sort of world, or you were in the No Way Records hyper punk world.
Yep.
And now it's so merged in a really interesting way. Not completely merged. There's definitely people who'd be like, oh, that shit sucks. That's tough guy bullshit. Which is like pretty like corny to me at this point. Like having that person, like you don't have to like everything, but like having that sort of closed mind to it. But like there's so much interesting blends of different people at different shows. Like nowadays you'll see people from like the band like Public Acid hang out people in like Division of Mind who are like couldn't be more different worlds, but like they've played shows together and stuff. And I think that's one of the coolest things about hardcore now is how blended it is.
It's like you see the Chisel playing like FYA. Like,
yeah. Chisel will play the same stuff as Trapped Under Ice or whatever.
It's crazy.
And I'm all about it. I think it's so cool. Or a great example would be a band like Restraining Order, who, great band, but they sound like Negative Effects or something. Like they sound like they'd be in the early 80s Boston, but they're playing, with Magnitude or whatever. And I think that's cool because I think there's so many cool different sounds. I just want people who are only into heavier hardcore to like the fast shit too, because that's always going to be my favorite thing is the faster stuff.
Yeah, I have friends that are like much more fast orientated or oriented, and like I come from the Bridge 9. Yeah,
no, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of that stuff in retrospect is good. I just got into it after the fact.
So like I'm kind of getting steered towards like I've always appreciated like the very like DB like do like
yeah for sure.
It's not like moshy, but it's like stage divey.
More like slamming side to side as opposed to
exactly. So
like a hardcore dancing kind of thing.
Because like in Posi-core, this is like you're talking about brocore. There was Posi-core too, where it was like it's very PMA, but it's still.
Are we talking like the like a band like Champion? or something like that. Yeah.
Weren't they were canceled, weren't they?
They were very canceled, very justifiably, I will say. but
at the time
they were a very notable band at the time. They were very
when we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
They were like that very there was a lot of Victory Records, I feel like, that was on that, where it was, we don't want violent moshing, but we're going to be like very violent. I don't know. It was very weird. But
it was like kind of Youth Crew-y in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I get into the fast stuff, is like Judge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like, that's like a great band. That's like, I feel like everybody should like Judge. Like,
everybody should listen to Judge. There's something for everybody in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to sell a friend recently on Integrity, because he kind of comes from the punk world. And I was like, listen, Integrity, they're like Judge with like Slayer or something. Yeah. Like it's just like good music.
It does sound like Mike Judge vocals with like very metallic riffs.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I'm so bummed. This is like 2019, probably. Youth of Today and Judge came and played here at like the warehouse, which is like the big like DIY space. Like it can fit like 300. I mean, it has fit hundreds and hundreds of people.
Okay.
But like realistically, 250 people. But when Judge played, I think Mike Judge, he had like a family emergency. So Porcell ended up singing for Judge that night. So I've never gotten to see like actual Judge before.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool seeing Porcell sing for them, but it was definitely like a different sort of thing. It was like a karaoke sort of vibe.
Right. And like no shade at all to Judge, because those dudes are fucking legends. But like seeing Judge now is very different than seeing
Judge.
They
seem like the scariest band in the world in 1989 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, like the early, like the 91 like tour where they basically ended because people were getting beat up unjustifiably at shows.
Crazy.
That time would have been scary.
Yeah, whereas now, like these are men with children.
Yeah, like
these men know what Bluey is.
Like they've got union jobs. Like
yeah, for sure. I mean, and I will say, you're kind of talking about like a band like Chisel playing like FYA, that kind of stuff, which is very cool to me. I think some of like the capital H bands now are some of the best bands I've seen from that side of things in my lifetime. Like Mind Force or End It. Like I love these bands. Like I'm so about them. I was just talking about End It with a friend earlier today. I was just like, man, this is like to me better than a lot of the capital H bands when I was 18. Like I love these bands. I think they're very cool.
The caliber of music post COVID has been insane.
Yeah.
Like even locally, it's pretty crazy.
Oh, it's night and day. I remember 2019. So I was in my late 20s at the time, starting to feel a little like I was still loved punk and hardcore and I was playing in bands, but I was feeling like, is this kind of it? Like, is there going to be no younger people? Is it all of us like who are like 25 to 35 doing this? Like somebody's got to keep this going. And then post COVID, it's just like a whole new wave. And one of the things that was interesting when we were on tour is people have kind of said the same thing everywhere. I think everybody's kind of talking about how kind of hardcore's having a moment right now. And you see it all the way into mainstream advertisements and major music festivals, whatever. We don't need to go into that kind of discourse, but regardless, seeing a whole new generation invigorated in hardcore, even if it's people who are like, oh, that band sucks or whatever, but like, listen, even if they don't like the band that you think is cool right now, today's kid who's like in a new metal shirt is probably 2 years is going to be wearing some like a disclosed Japanese hardcore shirt or whatever and say like, yeah I only like raw punk and stuff. Like there's people who are gonna like enter the scene and be like, to use the parlance of kids now, it's like it could be like cringe or whatever, but like give people a chance to develop. And it's cool seeing young people, because even though it makes me feel weird and old, I shouldn't feel like the youngest person in the room. I should feel like somebody who's, been around for a little while, because
it is discouraging to feel like one of the younger ones. Like, because even in Montreal, we're kind of struggling because there's no real all ages scene.
Yeah.
Just because of the culture of drinking and things here. But Like,
Is most stuff like 18 or 21 over there?
yeah, it's all bars. It's all luckily it's 18
Yeah.
because the drinking age is 18. But like,
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and it's only in this province. But like the only real all ages space, and I put all ages in quotes just because it's not supposed to be, is this punk squat that is pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Both like of people attending and the layout of the venue. It's pretty much like a fire hazard.
Yeah. I remember going to places when I was 16 in going to like Durham, North Carolina, which has some at the time, very dangerous spots. Like I remember people actually being shot outside venues.
Holy shit.
Like not showgoers, but like I remember the second hardcore show I ever went to, the police showed up because somebody in the neighborhood got shot directly outside the venue. Fuck. But all that's to say is like young people, not only should like there be like all ages places, but places that are
safe,
accessible too. Like, because if you're 16, you might not know what punk to ask about where the cool DIY space is. There should also be like more all ages traditional venues. Like here, there's like a place called the Camel or stuff like that, where it's like you can actually like get your foot in the door and then you can find out about the cool spots. Like, but if there's not like a cool club or coffee shop or whatever that's going to do all ages shows, there has to be a place for people to get their foot in the door.
Right.
Otherwise, they'll just stay on the internet.
And like I know that in Greensboro, y'all had that because there's a venue that all my friends' bands used to go through.
What was it called? Like what? Cat's Cradle?
Yes.
There's Cat's Cradle. That's in Carborough.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I don't know.
Yeah, Carborough. It's like right next to Chapel Hill. Yeah, I went to a lot of shows there. It's a bigger venue. That's definitely when I was like 15, I would see like street punk shows there. But they still go. They still have shows there. I saw Talk About an Old Man show, but it was really sick. Like a year and a half ago, I saw Circle Jerks and Negative Approach there.
Yo, that tour was so fucking good. Was 7 Seconds on it?
No, it was actually Municipal Waste was on that leg.
Oh fuck.
I mean, I think this is everybody pretty much agrees, but like, it is shocking how good Negative Approach are.
Why are they so angry? They're so old and still so angry.
I've seen so many 80s hardcore bands at this point. So I remember seeing the band Scream. They were like an 80s DC hardcore band when I was in high school. And I was like, this is depressing. Not only they're old, which they can't help, but they just don't seem enthusiastic or like they want to be there and like they're really bringing it. And then the other end of the spectrum, you have like Negative Approach and you're like, this band is maybe better than they've ever been, and they're so scary. Like that dude,
like 30 years, and they still give 110%. Like
it's
every
crazy.
Show.
And the Circle Jerks were really good too.
They were.
I think they had their drummer. I can't remember his name, John something. I think, but I mean, he was like nasty drummer. He like I know he had like drummed for like Danzig and stuff. So it was like as far as like an older, that's a real old head show. I mean, it was sick though. It was really good. That was like a real like my 17-year-old fantasy come to life.
It was so sick seeing that show because he was at a big venue. Like it was at like 1,000 cap room.
Okay.
Sold out. And it was 7 Seconds with Circle Jerks.
Cool.
And I love 7 Seconds.
That's they were PMA, a really
like,
big band for me. My high school band, we had the guy who did one of our like little CDs we did. We paid the guy who did the cover to Let's Talk More. That's Propaganda. Walk Together, Rock Together.
Yeah.
Was like one of our crowning achievements. Like we got the same artist of Walk Together, Rock Together. Cause like 7 Seconds was a major, major band for me when I was 17.
I know that it's not the OG, but I was lucky enough to get the Crew shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Where it just says you just got the the font 7 Seconds and then it's like the Crew more artwork.
They're a band I don't revisit a ton. I'd say about once or twice a year I'll pop them on and I'll be like, yeah, this is still
just
so
vibe
good.
Out.
Yeah, rocks. Yeah. I saw them
band.
Like in 2014 or something like that, and they were still really good.
They played This Is Hardcore in like 2015 or 2016.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I like that they're still going and like he still sounds the same. Like they still sound exactly the same.
Oh, his voice is the exact same. It's crazy. Whereas like John Brandon from Negative Approach just sounds like the devil now. Like I feel like, if you listen to their records, it's like tie down. Whereas like now it's like it just
He's
sounds
like,
crazy.
it's one step from dying fetus.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like it sounds like the devil to me.
Well, let me know what Private Hell's got going on. I know that the Tower of Silence came out recently.
Yeah.
That's leading up to an EP.
Yeah. So we're doing an EP with this new label here called Persistent Vision Records. We're kind of one of the earlier bands on here. Only things they've done so far is they did some reissues for the they're not Richmond, but like kind of like right outside Richmond. The kind of classic screamo band Page 99.
Yeah.
They did their recent reissues, and I made friends with him because I'm friends with one of the guys in Page 99. So he's doing a tape for us. We put out the Tower of Silence single, which is like, admittedly, not the best representation of us. I really, really like that song a lot, but it's like us trying to do like a real Sepultura Metallica kind of like mid-tempo head
riffy
banging. Yeah, it's like a real like just like a make a mean face and pretend you're riding a motorcycle kind of song. And I love it. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I think it's a really good song. But so we have it coming out in about a month and a half. Okay. Today's the 27th. I think we're going to launch the pre-orders in about a week with another new song. And a lot of the rest of it's a lot more like, I'd say more hardcore and punk and stuff. But like I said earlier, like what we really try to do with this band is just like try to synthesize all the things we like. Like we love thrash metal. I don't really think of us as a thrash band. We're thrash influenced, or like we love crust punk. We love like Tragedy and His Hero Is Gone and Amoebics and Os Rotten. But I don't really think of us as a crust band. I always tell people we're like a hardcore punk metal band or whatever. Like we're just kind of like, or like I've heard some people say like punk metal or whatever. There's actually I've seen the band, the local band Killing Pace.
Okay.
From Richmond, great band. They've kind of been using this term that was originally kind of a thing in the old punk scene that I was in. They would call it HCPM, hardcore punk metal, and they would like you put it as like one word, and like that's where it's just like it's kind of everything. It's like we love these certain elements of it, and we're like trying to synthesize all these things we love, and that's really the spirit of what we try to do with this band. Is just like we want to have fast thrashy parts. We want to have fast like Poison Idea kind of punk parts without having it be like part A, part B, but like have it be like a melting pot rather than like a bunch of things thrown on top of each other. Right. So yeah, all that's to say is we have a new 6-song EP coming out. It'll be out in about a month or so. We'll be laying quiet for about a month after that. My wife is due, so we'll be we'll just be laying. Yeah, thank you. It's exciting, scary but exciting. Yeah. But we'll be laying low. But then in the new year, we'll probably we'll be hitting the road for sure.
Sick.
We'll hopefully maybe go up to Canada again. I would love that. We actually met somebody on our recent tour who kind of gave us an invite, and I got his phone number and stuff to hit Vancouver. So maybe we'll hit the West Coast next year. Do like a fly out and do a couple days. But all that's to say, I'm really excited about these songs. This I always like the idea of make the band that you want to listen to.
Yes.
Because I am personally not a good mimic of styles. And I can only make the songs that I make. And I don't mean that in the sense that like, oh, I'm so unique and special. I just mean like there are some people who can like hear a certain style and be like, all right, here is an EP in that style. Like you want something that sounds like Swedish hardcore, here is a perfect embodiment of it. And some bands do it really, really well. I think there's like a band from here called Destruct, and they're amazing. It's got members of Enforced, and they just do the perfect synthesis of like, do you love Japanese and Swedish hardcore? Here is all that just like kind of honed into a blade that's very like sharp and very good. Whereas like for me personally, I'm just like not as good at like recreating certain styles. I can only just like try to make things that are influenced by stuff. Right.
But it's like, it's just
and
that.
And it kind of like, I'll write a song like, all right, I wrote this song and it's really influenced by like Integrity or Death Side or whatever. And And then it actually sounds nothing like that, just because like I'm just like not good at like recreating styles. I can only just like write what I write.
Right.
So all that's to say is like with this stuff, we're really trying to just incorporate all of our influences, and I'm really excited about it. We have the new song we're dropping is called Progress, and it's actually our bassist sings lead on this one, and it's whereas our song Tower Silence is more of like a metal oriented song. This one is more of like, I'll send it to you. It's more of an ass beater, like hard song. Ooh. I'm really excited about it. We got a really good response to our demo. We put out the demo in 2021.
Yep.
And we were gonna like keep writing and stuff. And we'd written like 2 songs. And our drummer, he had a work accident where he broke his legs. So we had to take some time off. So it feels like it's been so long since we've released stuff, because it's been like 2 years, but like it's just by life circumstances and stuff. It's been a little longer than we originally planned, but I think what we ended up coming up with is like a really strong batch of songs, and I'm excited about it. I think we'll have some really cool shows, I'm sure, in the early new year. I'm pretty excited about it. Next week we're playing with the Cro-Mags, which will be an interesting experience. Yeah, I'm excited.
That'll be it's exciting but interesting.
Yes, it'll be interesting. If nothing else, it'll be a great story to tell.
Yes,
it's in Virginia Beach too. Okay. At this point, by the time people are hearing this will be old history. But Virginia Beach has a historically very intense scene, of like violence.
It's violent.
Yeah, it's like
I even know stories.
Yeah, it's legendarily violent. So we're like, it's not as violent as it was, because it's kind of like how we're talking about Judge, where it's like these people are getting a little older.
Right.
But playing with the Cro-Mags in Virginia Beach will be an interesting experience. I'm excited. I don't mean that in a bad way or dismissive way. It'll be different, because one thing I love about our band, just kind of talking about our different influences, is like we love playing different types of shows because we're influenced by different stuff. Like we're going to play a show with the Cro-Mags, or we've played shows with Enforced, but we've also played with like D-beat bands, or like even like kind of like death metal bands. We love playing like different types of stuff. And this will be like the purest like Virginia Beach experience, playing with the Cro-Mags and VB. So I'm excited.
The old heads coming out of Mosh retirement.
Oh yeah. Yeah. VB energy is like guy in like a maybe one guy either in like a Pennywise shirt, or maybe in like a Sick of It All shirt with like an 8-ball and a sock. So I just heard so many stories. When I moved to Richmond, I made a lot of good friends with the people in Norfolk, and Norfolk has a really good scene right now. The label Not For The Weak has been doing a lot of cool stuff. But they always just tell me crazy old VB stories. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's going to be sick. I'd love to be able to play with Cro-Mags, because that's just, like you said, it's a story.
Yeah, something interesting will happen out of it, yes. I'm sure.
At the very least, you'll have a very interesting conversation with, hopefully, Harley.
Oh, we really want to meet Harley. I mean, I remember even, did you ever see the documentary American Hardcore?
Yes.
I used to watch that documentary like religiously in high school, and there's some great Harley quotes in there that are just like burned in my brain. So I was like, I got to meet this man.
They just live rent free.
So that's kind of what's going on. Early 2024, I think we'll hit the ground running pretty hard. And in the meantime, hopefully people enjoy Days of Wrath, our EP. It'll be out on tape and maybe out on vinyl next year. We'll see. Okay. We got some irons in the fire. And we'll probably hopefully follow up soon with it, because we're already writing for a potential LP. So
okay, good. Yeah. I know that it sucks when you have to like put shit on hold when you have like this momentum writing and everything. So
yeah. It'll be we'll do some local shows and stuff. And so by the time people are hearing this, check out the song Progress. It's pretty cool. It's a much different vibe than Tower Silence, but it's also, I think, undoubtedly the same band.
Awesome. Whenever y'all are looking to tour and y'all want to come up to Montreal, I don't book, but I can put y'all in contact with the right people. Yeah,
I would love that. We like I said, we really liked it up there. Like we made some friends up there. We would love to come back. Montreal is kind of where it's at. Ready for more poutine. We went to like 3 different places.
Yes.
So Yeah,
Okay, well,
I
okay.
love A&W too. So half of us are vegetarian.
Yes.
And I'm
You got that
vegetarian.
Beyond the
So, oh yeah,
Impossible.
we went to A&W like 3 different times while we were there because A&W in the States is like, from what I've read, it's like kind of like a whole different thing,
Mm-hmm.
but just like under the same name. But whereas in Canada, it's like so goddamn good
It's
as far as fast food goes.
how the kids say it's bussin'.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say.
They say that.
Yeah, when we played in Toronto, there was like we played it with Electric Chair at this place called Seascape. It's like a sci-fi bar. It was kind of cool though.
Oh, that sounds cool.
But there's like an A&W right across the street. So we like walked right over after the gig.
Which poutine spot was your favorite?
So there's this place called Patati Patata.
Oh, on Saint Laurent and Rachel.
It was like on a corner.
Yep.
It was really good. Yeah, I got it was like a tofu poutine and it was delicious. I liked it. We also went to this poutine place, and I'll preface this by saying I know this is not real poutine, and I talked about this with a person from Montreal, and they looked horrified. But there was like a Vietnamese vegan place in Toronto that we went to,
Okay.
and it was like a curry poutine, and it was pretty sweet. Not true poutine, I know, but it was just like it's curry on French fries. What's not to love?
It's not true, but I'm sure it's good.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about like Starbucks. Like it's not coffee, but it's just like sometimes it's tasty.
I will say we're and I put myself in this now because I am very much like a poutine person.
Yeah, no, it's
but yeah, as soon as I tried Ontario poutine, and I'm gonna be fair with my Ontario friends, it's not good. It's bad.
Yeah.
Like y'all's poutine is weak.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I was a picky eater as a little kid, and like French fries were like the only thing I ate. So I was like, you mean your like local specialty dish is a form of French fries and cheese? Like I'm
With gravy.
in. Yeah,
That's
I'm
fucking awesome.
in. So
Yeah,
it's the best.
I love poutine is great. I'm happy when Americans, like people, my people, from the States come up and they can get turned on to some real poutine. And you can usually find good vegan stuff. Like Montreal takes care of the vegs.
Oh yeah, dude. We even went to a I don't remember what it's called. One day we had breakfast. And it was like a vegan cafe or like a vegetarian cafe. And they just like gave us free things because they overheard we were in a band. They gave us they're like fried Oreos and shit. It was great. I can't remember the name. I will say one of my only regrets on tour is I didn't do enough coffee tourism. Just because I'm the only big coffee drinker in my band. So a lot of times that the ship was steered elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Next tour, I need to focus on my coffee, trying out.
Well, when y'all come back, I usually try to get to the venue or whatever early.
Yeah, check in and all that.
So that we can go to the coffee spot closest to the venue. That's decent.
Yeah.
So because sometimes it's hard, and then sometimes people don't know that there's great coffee right around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I feel like I have a kinship already with Montreal, so I'm sure there's some good stuff out there.
Beautiful stuff. So good.
Hell yeah.
And I'm not because I'm biased. I am biased, but not just because of that. If I was just coming and playing and exploring the coffee scene, I would be flabbergasted. There's too many coffee shops. I had somebody last night ask me what my favorite what my coffee spot was. I was like, it depends on what neighborhood I'm in and what I'm in the mood for, because there's that many options. Yeah, for sure. It's like in Richmond. There's about like 4 really great coffee shops spread out all over, and then there's a lot of like decent ones. My neighborhood unfortunately only has a decent one. So a lot of times I'll have to drive 20 minutes to get like a really good cup. Surprisingly, I'm in that same predicament. My only coffee spots within like a 4-block radius are like okay. Yeah, it's just like it's perfectly fine and a little overpriced to where like I'll go there if I just really need like a powerful cold brew, but like that's about it. But like it's not my first choice. Like no, nor my second or third. I'll gladly walk like 10 more minutes to go get better coffee. Hell yeah. Well, Mikey, this has been really fun. I am excited to hear the new EP and excited for you guys to come back up here. Thanks, man. I really appreciate you having me on. I don't get to talk about coffee often and just really really talk about it because most people don't give a shit. What a fucking shame. What a shame. Uncultured swine. Before we go, I got one more coffee question. It's half coffee, but what's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
I'm gonna stick local, Richmond for both.
Okay.
Um, maybe beans. No, actually, I'm going Richmond. I'm going Richmond hardcore. Richmond beans, Richmond hardcore.
Stay proud.
Yeah. Shout out Killing Pace. Shout out Mutually Assured Destruction. Shout out Public Acid. Shout out Richmond Vampire. All the bands.
Well, Mikey, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I really appreciate you hanging out.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Mikey for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out Days of Wrath. It's the upcoming EP from Private Hell. Check the link in the description for the Bandcamp. There's 2 singles that you can listen to now, and you can also get in for that pre-order. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us at Beans and Breakdowns on Instagram or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.